A young black man helped an elderly woman stranded on the roadside with a flat tire, not knowing that this small act of kindness would completely change his life. A simple gesture, expecting nothing in return, turned into the beginning of something miraculous. What happened when Elon Musk decided to find the person who helped his mother? Stay tuned. What unfolds next will surely leave you astonished and speechless. Thank you for following our story. If you enjoy heartwarming tales like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our latest stories. The sun was beginning to dip behind the trees, casting long shadows across the quiet suburban street of Oak Ridge Avenue. It was a peaceful afternoon that made you want to slow down and appreciate the little things in life. Unless, of course, you found yourself in an unexpected situation. On the side of the road stood an elderly woman, elegantly dressed, but her face betrayed a hint of worry. Her futuristic vehicle, a sleek Tesla Cybertruck, had come to a halt due to a flat tire. She glanced at her phone, hesitating about whether to call for help. Though she maintained a composed exterior, her hands trembled slightly, and her lips pressed together tightly, betraying her unease. Cars zoomed by, but none stopped to help. Not far away, a young man, around 19 years old, tall, dressed in a simple black t-shirt and sneakers, was riding his old bicycle home after a long day of work. His hands were calloused from the odd jobs he did to support his family. Despite the weariness that made his shoulders sag slightly, his eyes remained sharp, catching sight of the woman standing by the road. He slowed down, stopping for a moment to assess the situation. Something inside him wouldn't let him ride away. He had grown up believing that if you saw someone in need, you helped them, no matter how small the act. The young man pedaled closer, parked his bike, and approached the woman with a friendly smile. "Ma'am, do you need help?" he asked, his voice gentle and calm. Although his appearance was modest, the woman looked at him with a hint of surprise. "Oh, thank you for stopping," she responded. "I think the tire is flat, but I don't know how to fix it." The young man looked at the tire, nodded confidently, and said, "No problem, ma'am. I can handle it. It'll only take a few minutes." As the young man knelt to inspect the tire, they began talking. He spoke about his day and how he worked hard to support his dream of going to college, even though he wasn't sure if he could afford it. The woman listened attentively, her eyes glistening, moved by his honesty and humility. Neither of them knew that this chance encounter wasn't just about fixing a flat tire. It was the beginning of something special, something that would remind us all of the transformative power of kindness. The young man didn't waste time. He set his bicycle aside and crouched beside the massive Cybertruck's flat tire. Even though the vehicle was far more advanced than anything he had ever worked on, his confidence didn't waver. The woman watched as he examined the tire, his hands quickly wiping on his pants to clean off the dirt before pulling a small toolkit from the bag strapped to his bike. "Looks like it's just a puncture. I can patch it up for now, but you should get it checked properly later." His voice was calm and reassuring. The woman smiled with visible relief, her smile reaching her eyes. "You seem to know what you're doing," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. As he worked, they continued talking. She asked his name and learned that it was Ethan. Ethan told her that he had grown up in the area, taking on multiple part-time jobs to support his family and save for college. "It's tough," he admitted, his shoulders sagging slightly as if to ease some of the burden. "But I'm not complaining. My mom always says, focus on what you can do, not what you don't have." The woman listened, her eyes softening as she heard his story. She could tell that Ethan was not only hardworking but also had a warm heart, someone who genuinely cared about others. "So, what do you want to study?" she asked. "Engineering," he answered, his eyes lighting up. "I've always been fascinated by how things work, machines, technology. I want to build things that make life easier for people. But college is expensive, so I'm just taking it one step at a time." The conversation continued naturally as Ethan worked, occasionally making jokes to lighten the mood. "I've got to be honest," he laughed. "This car is way out of my league, but hey, a tire is a tire, right?" The woman laughed, genuinely appreciating his humor and humility. About 25 minutes later, Ethan finished the repair. He stood up, sweat beading on his forehead, but his eyes were gleaming. "All done, ma'am," he said, pointing at the tire. You can go now." The elderly woman let out a sigh of relief, reaching into her purse to pull out some money as a gesture of gratitude. Ethan hesitated before politely shaking his head, his sincere gaze meeting the woman's eyes. "Thank you, ma'am, but I can't take it. I didn't do this for the money. I just wanted to help." His words left the woman speechless. In a world often driven by self-interest, here stood a young man who expected nothing in return for his kindness. The woman gently placed the money back into her purse and instead offered him a warm smile, her eyes glistening with renewed hope. "You have a good heart, Ethan," she said, her voice full of emotion, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "The world needs more people like you." As she prepared to leave, she asked if there was any way to stay in touch. Ethan smiled softly, shrugging, "No need, ma'am. I'm just happy I could help. Take care of yourself." The woman watched as Ethan picked up his bike and rode away, his silhouette gradually fading into the distance. She sat in her car for a moment, her eyes following his disappearing figure, reflecting on what had just happened. Ethan had no idea that his small act of kindness had left a profound impression on her. The elderly woman drove away in her freshly repaired Cybertruck, but couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. His story, his humility, and his genuine kindness had truly moved her. In a world that often felt rushed and lacking empathy, meeting someone like Ethan was a rare and beautiful experience. Later that evening, when she arrived home, she immediately picked up the phone to call her son. On the other end of the line was Elon Musk, one of the most recognizable names in the world. "Hey, Mom." Elon greeted warmly. "How was your day?" "Oh, let me tell you," she began with a soft laugh. "I had quite the adventure. My Cybertruck had a flat tire today." Elon, always want to worry about his mother, quickly interjected, "Are you okay? Did someone help you?" "Yes, I'm fine," she reassured him, her hands unconsciously tightening on the steering wheel. "And that's what I wanted to tell you about." A young man stopped to help me. No hesitation, no questions, just pure kindness. His name is Ethan, and he's only 20 years old. Elon listened attentively as his mother recounted the story. She described how Ethan went out of his way to fix her tire and even refused any money for his help. But what impressed her the most was his story, how he was working multiple jobs to support his family and saving up to attend college for engineering. "You should have seen him, Elon," she continued, her voice softening, her eyes shimmering with pride. "He's smart, humble, and has a heart of gold. He reminded me of you at that age, full of dreams and determination." Elon was silent for a moment, absorbing everything his mother had said. "Mom, it sounds like this young man deserves a chance," he finally said. "Do you have any way to contact him?" "No," she admitted, her lips pressing together in thought, "but I can describe him, and I know exactly where I was when I met him. I'm sure we can find him." Hearing the determination in his mother's voice, Elon agreed. "All right, let's do it. If he wants to be an engineer, we can help him. And anyone who treats you with that kind of kindness is someone I want to meet." In the following days, Elon's team quietly worked to track Ethan down. They reviewed nearby traffic camera footage, scoured social media for any mentions of the encounter, and reached out to the local community. Meanwhile, Ethan continued his daily routine, his legs pedaling steadily, his hands calloused from work, completely unaware that the world's richest man was looking for him. After days of searching, they finally found him. Elon's mother smiled, her eyes glowing with excitement as she received the news, her shoulders visibly relaxing after the anticipation. "He has no idea what's coming," she said, her voice trembling with barely contained joy. Elon started preparing to meet Ethan, his heart filled with eagerness, his fists clenching at the thought of rewarding the young man whose simple act of kindness had touched his mother's heart. This wasn't just about fixing a flat tire. It was about recognizing someone who embodied qualities that could change the world. For Ethan, the next chapter of his life was about to unfold, all beginning with an unexpected phone call. Ethan pedaled home that evening, his legs aching, his shoulders slumping under the weight of exhaustion, yet his hands held firmly onto the handlebars. He had no idea that a series of life-changing events were set in motion because of his simple act of kindness. For him, It was just another day in his tough yet determined life. At 19, Ethan had faced more challenges than many do in a lifetime. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, his family had always struggled to make ends meet. His mother worked tirelessly, her weary hands often pulling double shifts to ensure there was enough money to keep the family afloat. His father, once a mechanic, had been injured years ago and could no longer work full-time, making Ethan the primary support for his family. He took on any job he could find, from small odd jobs to long shifts, to help out. Despite the hardships, Ethan never allowed himself to become bitter. He found joy in the small things, playing with his little sister, tinkering with old electrical appliances, and dreaming of a future where he could pursue his passion for engineering. Yet those dreams felt like luxuries far beyond his reach. Weekdays began early with shifts at the local grocery store, followed by afternoons spent fixing bikes or helping neighbors with small repairs. On weekends, he worked as a dishwasher at a diner, his hands becoming rough and his knuckles stiff from hours of scrubbing. Every dollar he earned went towards paying bills or saving for college. On the rare occasions he allowed himself to think of the future, it always seemed so distant, almost like an illusion. College tuition was too steep, and scholarship seemed impossible with his busy schedule, leaving him little time for academic excellence. Maybe next year, he would tell himself, though he had no idea how much longer he could keep postponing his dream. The weight of his family's responsibilities often left Ethan feeling isolated. While his peers were out enjoying life, he was either working or worrying about making ends meet. However, Ethan never let his circumstances define him. He remembered his mother's words, "Even when life feels heavy, kindness will always keep your heart light." It was this belief that drove him to stop and help the elderly woman on the side of the road, even though he could have easily ridden past without a second thought. But that day, as he patched up the tire, his hands stained with oil and his legs aching from standing for hours, Ethan felt the familiar pang of anxiety. Would all his hard work ever pay off? Would he ever have the chance to study engineering and build the future he dreamed of? He had no idea that this seemingly ordinary act of kindness was about to open doors he never imagined possible. For now, though, he was just Ethan, the boy with big dreams and even bigger responsibilities, riding his old bike home with a heart full of hope. He had no idea that the struggles he thought defined his life were about to be replaced by something extraordinary. A few days after Ethan helped the elderly woman with her flat tire, he continued with his daily life, completely unaware that a storm of excitement was brewing behind the scenes. That day, he was at home repairing an old toaster for a neighbor. Sitting at a small, cluttered workbench in the corner of his family's living room, his eyes focused intently on the tangled wires. The giggles of his little sister from the other room made him smile, his lips curving slightly, his gaze softening. Despite all the struggles his family faced, these small moments were the motivation that kept him going. As he was testing the toaster, a loud knock on the front door startled Ethan. His heart pounded, and he called out, "I'll get it," quickly wiping his greasy hands on his jeans before heading to the door. When the door opened, Ethan froze in place, his eyes widening in shock, his lips parting slightly as if unable to believe what was in front of him. Standing there, with an unmistakable presence and a small team behind him, was Elon Musk. Ethan blinked, his heart pounding as if it might leap out of his chest, his mind spinning. Surely, this couldn't be real. "Ethan," Elon called his name, extending his hand with a warm smile. Yes, that's me," Ethan stammered, his hands trembling slightly as he took Elon's, while his mind scrambled to make sense of what was happening. "I've heard a lot about you," Elon said, his tone friendly and genuine. "My mother told me about how you helped her the other day. She was deeply touched by your kindness, and so am I. I wanted to meet you in person." Ethan's family, now realizing who the unexpected visitor was, gathered behind him, all of them equally stunned. Ethan's mother, still in her nursing scrubs, whispered in disbelief, her eyes wide, "Is that Elon Musk?" She stood frozen, her hand instinctively covering her mouth. Ethan struggled to find his words, his throat feeling tight. I just did what anyone would do," he finally said, his voice trembling. "Not everyone would stop to help a stranger, especially without expecting anything in return, Elon replied, his eyes shining with sincerity. That's rare, and it says a lot about who you are. I want to thank you for what you did for my mother, and I also want to hear more about you, your dreams, your goals. Elon and his team were invited inside. They sat down, and Ethan began to share his story. Elon listened attentively, nodding in understanding, his eyes never leaving Ethan. He asked Ethan about his passion for engineering, the challenges he faced in affording college, and his vision for the future. When Ethan finished, Elon leaned forward, a spark of excitement in his eyes. You remind me a lot of myself at your age, he said, his voice filled with empathy and enthusiasm. Ambitious, hardworking, and curious about how the world works. I think someone like you deserves the opportunity to pursue your dreams. That's why I'm here. Ethan's eyes widened, and he swallowed hard, trying to control his breath as it quickened with anticipation as Elon continued. I want to help you. Whether that means covering your college tuition, connecting you with internships, or even bringing you on board to work with my team. I'll make sure you have the resources to achieve your goals. Ethan was speechless for a moment, his lips pressing together as if trying to hold back tears. This was a dream come true, something he had never dared. Imagine what happened to someone like him. I don't even know what to say, he finally whispered, his voice thick with emotion. You don't need to say anything, Elon replied, his eyes reflecting genuine appreciation. Just keep being who you are, kind, hardworking, and true to yourself. The rest will fall into place. What had started as an ordinary day for Ethan had turned into a moment he would remember for the rest of his life. Elon Musk's visit wasn't just a thank you. It was the beginning of a future that Ethan had only dared to dream of. Just when Ethan thought that Elon Musk's surprise visit couldn't possibly get any more extraordinary, the moment took an even more astonishing turn. After sitting and chatting with Ethan and his family for several hours, Elon stood up and gestured for everyone to follow him outside. Curious and a little nervous, Ethan followed Elon to the driveway, with his family trailing behind. Parked there was a sleek, futuristic vehicle, Elon's personal Tesla, but next to it was something even more eye-catching, a brand new Cybertruck. Elon turned to Ethan, his face lighting up with a broad smile. Ethan, I want to start by giving you this Cybertruck. It's yours now. Ethan's jaw nearly dropped, his gaze shifting between Elon and the gleaming vehicle before him, his lips trembling slightly. Wait, are you serious? He stammered, his voice barely escaping his throat. Absolutely, Elon nodded. My mother told me how you patched her tire with just a few simple tools and incredible ingenuity. I thought you might like something a bit more advanced to work on and to get around town. No more having to pedal everywhere. Ethan's entire family stood there, mouths agape, their expressions reflecting pure astonishment. Ethan, his lips quivering, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and confusion, finally found his voice. I don't even have a driver's license yet, he admitted, his voice a blend of excitement and embarrassment. Elon chuckled. Well, that will be step one then. I'll cover the cost of your lessons and your driver's license. Consider this an investment in your future. But Elon wasn't finished yet. He pulled out a folder from his team and handed it to Ethan. Inside this folder is something even more important, a full scholarship for any engineering program you choose. Whether you want to study at MIT, Columbia, or any other school, it's all covered. Tuition, living expenses, everything. Ethan's hands shook as he opened the folder, his eyes scanning the documents inside. He looked up at Elon, his eyes brimming with tears, his voice breaking. I don't know how to thank you for this, he said, his voice choked with emotion. You've already done more than enough, Elon said sincerely. Helping my mother wasn't just about fixing a tire. It showed the character you have. You're someone who makes the world a better place. We need people like you, Ethan, and I want to make sure you have every opportunity to reach your full potential. Ethan's mother, who had been quietly wiping away tears, stepped forward and hugged her son tightly. You deserve this, she whispered, her voice full of pride. You deserve every bit of it. Neighbors began gathering as they heard the commotion, and when they saw what was happening, the entire crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the small street. For Ethan, this moment felt like a dream, yet it was real, every detail unfolding right before his eyes. His heart pounded, each beat reminding him that this was not a fantasy. As the overwhelming feeling began to settle, Ethan realized that his life was about to change forever. He would no longer be burdened by financial worries or uncertainty about his future. Finally, he could pursue his dream of becoming an engineer, armed with the tools and resources to succeed. Elon clapped Ethan on the back, a smile of encouragement spreading across his face. "Now go out there and build something amazing," he said. And in that moment, Ethan knew he would. In the months following Elon Musk's visit, Ethan's life underwent a complete transformation. What had once seemed like an endless cycle of grueling work and hardship had now turned into a journey filled with hope, opportunity, and purpose. The first step in Ethan's new life was learning to drive. Elon's team arranged for him to take professional driving lessons. Within a few weeks, Ethan passed his test. With flying colors. Every time Ethan sat behind the wheel of the gifted Cybertruck, he still found it hard to believe the reality before him. He gripped the steering wheel firmly, feeling the smooth hum of the engine, reminding himself of how far he'd come and how much further the road ahead stretched out for him. Next, Ethan focused on his education. After careful consideration, he decided to enroll in a prestigious engineering program at Columbia University. Elon's team handled everything, ensuring that Ethan's tuition, housing, and even his books were all fully covered. As Ethan stepped onto the Columbia campus, each step on the cobblestone path made his heart pound with excitement and disbelief. Coming from a humble neighborhood, he had never imagined setting foot in such a prestigious institution, let alone as a student there. Although the transition wasn't without its challenges, Ethan's determination and work ethic shone brightly. He threw himself into his studies, working so hard that dark circles formed under his eyes, and his hand would sometimes tremble from exhaustion as he gripped his pen. Yet his passion remained alive in every page he read. He quickly became a standout student. Professors praised his critical thinking skills and his creative approach to problem solving, skills he had honed through years of working with limited resources. Beyond academics, Ethan found himself stepping into a new world of opportunities. Elon personally invited him to visit Tesla's headquarters, where he met engineers and innovators shaping the future. Ethan's eyes widened, his gaze fixed in awe as he took in every detail, seeing for the first time the kinds of projects that could change the world. Back home, Ethan's transformation inspired his family and community. Seeing one of their own achieve so much made everyone realize that kindness and hard work could truly open great doors. Ethan's younger sister began dreaming bigger for her own future, her eyes lighting up at the possibilities of what she might achieve. His mother, whose hands no longer trembled from exhaustion, finally felt the burden of their financial struggles lifting. But what surprised Ethan the most was how much he had grown personally. From a shy boy who only knew hard work and doubted his future, he had become a confident young man with a clear vision of his path ahead. He realized that his act of kindness on the roadside that day had not only changed his life, but had also unlocked his potential. Ethan began giving back to his community, mentoring local kids, and sharing his story to inspire others. He wanted people to understand that no matter how difficult their circumstances, their actions and character could lead to incredible opportunities. From fixing bikes and toasters to working alongside the greatest minds in engineering, Ethan's journey had indeed been miraculous. And as he walked the halls of Columbia and Tesla, he carried with him the humility and kindness that had started it all. His transformation wasn't just about success. This story reminds us of the power of kindness and the opportunities that life can bring from the smallest of actions. Have you ever experienced a moment where your kindness changed your life or someone else's? Share your story with us in the comments. Your voice might be the inspiration someone else needs. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to share it with friends and family to spread the message of kindness and life-changing opportunities. Thank you for following and supporting us. Let's keep spreading kindness, one small act at a time, and create meaningful change. Wishing you happiness and positive energy always.